I woke up in a hospital bed, handcuffed to the bed. And, I had many charges. And, first degree assault on two police officers was one of the main charges. And while I was in jail, I lost custody of my daughter, which, she was probably the only real soft spot that I had, and probably the best thing that could have happened for her, since I was dragging her through the dirt. And, I was looking at a 6-year sentence in prison for all of the charges. And they let me out on a deferred and told me that I couldn't get in trouble anymore. And if I did, then I would be looking at whatever time for any other charges plus the 6 years.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to another episode of I Love Being Sober, sponsored by Camelback Recovery, Arizona's preferred mental health and addiction treatment option to help newcomers on their path to recovery. If that's you or someone you know, then you're in the right place, because my name is Tim Westbrook, and I'm the CEO and founder of Camelback Recovery here in the always sunny and always sober Phoenix, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people to stop their suffering and continue on their path to recovery. Today, I'm here with Amy Moore, a guiding light in the world of addiction recovery, whose own journey from struggle to sobriety fuels her passion to heal others. With a heart-centered approach, Amy transforms intervention into an act of love, fostering family unity and personal growth through education, group therapy, and compassionate support. Outside the therapy room, Amy is a lover of life and nature. Whether hiking with her family, snowboarding, or capturing the beauty of a sunset, she finds joy and renewal in the great outdoors. A pillar in her recovery community, Amy shares her story and wisdom through speaking engagements and podcasts, spreading hope and a roadmap to long-term sobriety. Join us as we explore Amy Moore's inspiring journey and her mission to bring light to the lives of those battling addiction, one heart and one family at a time. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. I'm glad to be here. And what a heartfelt introduction. Brought tears to my eyes. Thank you.
Isn't that so awesome to hear someone talk about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm so glad to have you here. We connected, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about you. So we're going to dig into it. Can you share what it was like growing up in an environment impacted by addiction and how it shaped your perspectives?
Yeah. I grew up here in Colorado, out in the middle of nowhere, rural Colorado. I grew up on a farm with chickens, ducks, geese, goats, cows. And we moved from Commerce City out into Weld County. And my dad bought a 100-year-old house and had it moved out there. And something happened with the neighbor and guns were involved. My dad threatened the neighbor with the knife. And next thing you know, we have no rights to build on our land. So I really grew up without electricity or running water. And it was kind of difficult. We were stealing electricity from our neighbor. So we had extension cords, like a mile of extension cords. So we had one plug-in in our whole house. And we had a wood burning stove. So we heated up all of our water on the stove, and we cooked all of our meals on a wood burning stove. And really growing up in that environment, my dad was drunk pretty much every day that I was growing up. I remember him going to treatment a couple of times, and he came back. It seemed like he came back worse. Like he came back more angry, and it was like he was more fun when he was drinking. But my dad was a very violent drunk. I watched the war between the North and the South growing up, and my dad was physically abusive with my mother, and I saw him stab forks through her hands and, knock her out with chairs and throw her out into the snow. And it was pretty tumultuous growing up in that environment. But my dad was my best friend, so in my eyes, my dad could do nothing wrong. And everything he said about my mom, I believed, like she was the problem. And if she would just, shut her mouth, then he wouldn't have to punch her. And it was awful, but I believed that stuff, So my mom was the enemy. And my dad started me and my mom, really this like jealous battle going on from the day that I was born, because he went down to St. Joe's where I was born and brought my mom a dozen red roses and said, "These are for my daughter, not for you." And it just kind of started this war. My mom really didn't like me much growing up, I felt. And, so she took it out on me. My dad was beating her and she was beating all of us kids. And there were 4 of us. I had an older brother and a younger sister. I really tried to be the mom growing up. And I would make sure that they had food. And so I was really cooking from the time that I was 7. And today, cooking is my love language. My dad would be in the kitchen with me and teach me how to season up things, pinch of this and a dash of that, some butter on this. And today, I'm a really good cook as a result of doing that. But it was out of necessity when I was growing up, and getting them clean clothes and making sure that they did their homework. And really no child should have to do that, and make sure that your brothers and sisters aren't creating any havoc so that nobody got beat. Because typically it was like a whole family thing, like everybody line up for your beating. And yeah, my brother and I were getting it the most, I think, because we were kind of little terrors in a way, like not like kids you see this today, but when you don't really have any entertainment, you make your own entertainment. So putting nails underneath the water truck's tires so that you could see a flat tire down the dirt road. We did that on a regular basis.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I grew up in a neighborhood with some kids that were pretty bad. So we did some stuff like that too. I mean, that's like literally the alcoholic behavior without the alcohol.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's the alcoholic behavior. And when you talk about alcoholic behavior, it's the lying, cheating, stealing, it's being destructive. It's like that type of a thing, causing havoc. Now, did your mom drink too?
My mom didn't drink. My mom was super religious. So we were in church every time the church doors were open. So every revival, every church, anything, church Sunday morning, Sunday night. I kind of found some solace in church. And I learned all the Bible verses. I, won a leather-bound Bible with my name on it. I sang in the church choir. And, singing in the church choir really gave me something with my dad, because my dad loved gospel music. And that was really the only time that he would come to church, to hear me sing a solo in front of the church.
Wow.
And so I would work really hard so my dad would come to church, because I just thought, if my dad came to church enough, he would stop drinking.
Now, is your dad still alive?
My dad died of cirrhosis of the liver when I was 14.
Ooh.
Yeah. My mom is still alive.
And what's your relationship like with your mom now?
So my relationship with my mom throughout my whole sobriety it's been up and down, really. My mom wrote me a letter disowning me. I don't even know how long ago, probably 10 years ago, telling me that I was a drunkard and all of this stuff, and that she didn't want anything to do with me unless it was backed up with scripture verses. And I was like, well, I guess she's disowning me. But, and, working some of the work with my recovery, I was really practicing on what's the best daughter that I can be? How can I show up and be the best daughter, no matter what kind of mother that she is? And in doing this work and finding peace around the resentment, not resenting her anymore, because she had a horrendous childhood growing up. My childhood was a million times better than her childhood. So of course she didn't have the tools to use in order to be a good mom to me, or to be the mom that I wanted her to be. I think that she was the best mom that she could be. Yeah. And I just started slowly, sending little letters, sending a text message saying, I love you and happy Mother's Day or whatever. And next thing you know, she invited me to be in her wedding.
Oh, wow.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Well, there's a woman named Sean Corn. She says, we all do the very best that we can with the tools that we've been given.
Right.
And so it's like, and I always remember that regardless of how nasty someone is being to me, I know that everybody's doing the very best that they can with the tools that they've been given, and not taking things personally. One of the 4 agreements, all of those things combined, just that I've learned in recovery have helped me not take things personally. And to your point, sending text messages, sending letters, sending cards, and eventually when she's ready, she'll come back to you, which she did, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's been great, getting to know my mom and getting to know more about her story, and knowing that trauma, is what separated us from each other. And, I often say that too, like we operate on our best operating system, and some of
Right.
us
Yeah.
don't have a very good operating system. So we need
Yeah.
to upgrade, just
Yeah.
like you would upgrade your computer,
Yeah.
let's have an upgrade.
Yeah. So let's back up for a minute. What led you to your first experience with drugs or alcohol, and how did it escalate over time?
So I always said that I never would drink or do drugs or any of that stuff because of my mom and dad's relationship,
Mhm.
like all of it. My mom was doing drugs when she met my dad and just like complete craziness. And I left home when I was 14. I actually snuck out of the house and got caught with some boy in a park right after my dad died. And my mom beat the crap out of me, like literally beat me from almost to a bloody pulp. And it was that day that I realized either my mom was going to kill me or I was going to kill her. And I left home and I went and moved in with some people from our church. And not too long after that, I found out I was pregnant. I was 15.
Mhm.
And the only right thing to do when you get pregnant is to get married.
Of course. Yes,
And
that'll make everything better, right?
so my mom threw together a shotgun wedding, and I married an angry, violent man that, was choking me until I was blue. And, like it was absolutely horrendous. And I gave birth to a baby when I was 16 and I got divorced at 17. I started working on college courses because I dropped out of school when I was in ninth grade, and I was living in Colorado Springs in a program for teenage mothers and going to college, and like my life looked great. And I was living right outside of the B Street gate in Fort Karsh, and a bunch of I started meeting all these guys, like, 1,000 guys to every girl. So, and one of the guys, I started dating him and he was like, Amy, it would be fine if you just took a couple of drinks. And I was like, no, my dad died of alcoholism. It's hereditary. I'm not doing it. And he was like, just have two. You could have 2 Jack Daniels Lynchburg lemonades. I'll have 2 and you'll be fine. We'll just stay here. And so he finally talked me into it. And I was like, sure. Okay. What could 2 drinks do? I slammed those 2 drinks down, took his second drink, slammed it down, and sent him back to the liquor store for more. And I drank so much alcohol that night. I'm sure I had alcohol poisoning and woke up
Wow.
in,
That was your first night?
yep, 18.
Wow. Okay. And then what happened? Did you remember? Did you wake up not remembering what happened?
I don't remember anything that happened. And I woke up in a bathtub covered in my own vomit with my boyfriend laying on the floor next to me saying, Amy, if you ever drink again, I'm going to leave you.
That sounds
Dude,
about right.
like, you promised you'd take care of me. What the heck? Well, when I got back from the liquor store, you were in the shower with some other dude. I'm like, where did this dude come from? Because I don't remember like any of it.
What did you expect?
I told you I couldn't drink.
Right. Okay. So that was the first night. Then tell me how it escalated.
So I don't remember where my daughter was at that point. She was 2 years old, and I don't know if she was in the house. I don't know where she was. I don't know if she was with her dad, and to this day, that still haunts me. And many times after that, I decided to drink. I don't know where my kid was, or I'd leave her at home by herself or with people that I didn't know. And, that's probably the hardest part of it, but I just couldn't stop. And I was so young that it was easier for me to get drugs. So I started doing drugs. I lived right next door to the biggest crack house in Colorado Springs. I started smoking crack. I did everything I said I wouldn't do. And I got a fake ID. I had access to liquor all the time because I lived right next to the base, and these guys would bring liquor over all the time. I was putting needles in my arms and, doing meth and snorting anything, taking hands full of whatever. Like I just went like absolutely insane. And then I met another dude and he was like, I really want you to come to Maryland and meet my parents. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the most horrible thing anybody could say is I want you to meet the parents. Because, like, don't tell me you love me and don't tell me you want me to meet the parents. Like, I just want to have fun, keep it light, keep it, fun. And I said that I would go and meet his parents. And that was the first time that I was ever on a plane. I was 19 at the time, and he took me to Maryland, and on the plane, he was like, I have all these pills. I just got my teeth pulled. And he goes, and I don't like the way they make me feel. And I was like, well, I love the way they make me feel. I was taking those pills and drinking on the plane and do not remember getting to Maryland. And I remember the next day him putting me on a plane to go back home. and don't remember meeting his parents, don't remember being in Maryland, and came back to Colorado and decided that I was going to have the biggest and best party of all time. And that meant getting my fake ID out, going to the liquor store, filling up my little hoopty, because, you know, I had one of the crazy hoopty party mobiles. You have to put oil in it every time you start it, and park it on a hill, pop the clutch to get it to go. So, you know, filled it up with alcohol. This is New Year's Day of 1995. And luckily I dropped my daughter off with her dad. And I got home. There was a credit card in the mail. I told all my friends, I'm taking you guys to Las Vegas. We're going to party with Metallica. And they're like, yes, you know. So we get to the airport. They won't let us go anywhere because we're all too drunk to get on a plane.
Yeah.
And so I was like, fine, I'll drive you guys.
Wow. Okay. From Colorado?
Yeah.
How long of a drive was that?
I don't even know if Metallica was in Las Vegas either.
Yeah. Did you make it?
No. No.
Okay, so what would you consider as your drug of choice? Alcohol. The other things were just like whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, I liked meth. I liked that I could drink more. I liked crack because I could drink more. But that stuff, I mean, you had to have so much of it. It was so expensive that I had to start dealing it in order to use it. So now I'm dealing drugs, I'm dealing acid, you know, like I'm constantly have drugs on me everywhere I go. And, you know, after we didn't go to Las Vegas, I mean, I still tried to go to Las Vegas, let me tell you, because I don't know, it was in my mind and I wanted to do it. And my friends were like, Amy, pull over and let us out. You're going to get us killed. And this is after I was like doing Ace Ventura, pet detective out the window, like throwing empty Bacardi breezers into oncoming traffic. I got pulled over by the police and they were like, what are you doing? And I said, I just won $1 million. That's why I'm running red lights at 90 miles an hour.
Oh, okay. So did you get arrested? Did you get, or
no, they let me go. They let me go.
Oh my God.
So I let my friends out on the side of the road. I went back to the house and I got dressed up in that wedding dress from when I was 15.
Okay.
And it wasn't a white wedding dress because my mom was like, you can't get married in white because you're a sinner. So it was like a pink prom dress and laced all the way to the floor. So I put that on, you know, I was like strapless, and I put my Doc Martens on and put my hair in a bun on top of my head and decided that I was going to drive myself to Las Vegas.
Okay.
And not too long after that, I saw red and blue lights in my rearview mirror. And I was like, look, my own personal escort to Las Vegas. So I got onto I-25, which is the major highway here, and threw my car into reverse and slammed into all the cop cars that were behind me, like that very much. And then I jumped out. And this is New Year's Day of 1995. And then, yes, I was arrested. So all the news cameras were there by this time. And I'm not a nice drunk, let me tell you. I'm not a pleasant, fun, you know, happy drunk. I'm a mean, nasty, violent, spitting drunk. Yeah, not happy. And it definitely wasn't happy to be restrained. And it's really uncomfortable to be in handcuffs when you're in a big wedding dress. So I decided just to rip the wedding dress off in the backseat of the car.
That makes sense. So was there a defining moment or a series of events that prompted you to seek change and begin your recovery?
Well, you know, when I got arrested that time, I really don't remember any of it. I woke up in a hospital bed, handcuffed to the bed. And, you know, I had many charges. And, you know, first degree assault on 2 police officers was one of the main charges. And while I was in jail, I lost custody of my daughter, which, you know, she was probably the only real soft spot that I had, and probably the best thing that could have happened for her, since I was dragging her through the dirt. And, you know, I was looking at a 6-year sentence in prison for all of the charges. And they let me out on a deferred and told me that I couldn't get in trouble anymore. And if I did, then I would be looking at whatever time for any other charges plus the 6 years. And I got arrested again at the end of that year for aggravated motor vehicle theft and domestic violence. And I can tell you that none of the consequences ever really deterred me from taking that next drink, because I was drunk the day that I left jail. And immediately got worse. Like, I was carrying guns, I was dealing more drugs, I was, you know, basically living from couch to couch, meeting dudes in bars. Like, it was just absolutely insane. And I got arrested again. Now I'm looking at a bunch more prison time. and pretty much want to die on a daily basis, just wishing that I would not wake up. And I think it was March of the next year that I called my mom and I just told her, I'm really depressed. Can you get me, a therapist or something, a pill, like I need an antidepressant. And she was like, Amy, have you ever thought about going to drug and alcohol rehab?
Right.
I was like, no, I don't need help. Like, I'm not that bad.
Yeah, right. I'm not that bad. Right.
I'm just depressed. And she didn't know a lot of that stuff that I was doing either. But I don't know, my mom, and I really hadn't talked to my mom in years, and so she was probably the last person that I could call. And she told me about Salvation Army. And not too long after that, I checked myself into Salvation Army. I was 21 years old, and it was a 6-month program, which when I went in, I thought it was a 6-week program.
Right.
They were like, oh no, it's a 6-month program.
Nice.
So then I walked right back out the front door. Then my mom was like, if you go to treatment, I'll help you get your daughter back. And probably the only thing that could have been said to me to make me go into treatment. And I did. And I stuck through.
So you went to treatment somewhere besides Salvation Army?
No, I went to Salvation Army.
You went to Salvation Army. They say, and I don't know how, and that was in Colorado. So I think they say the number, I heard that only 3% of people that start the Salvation Army finish.
I don't know what the statistics are, but it's a really hard program.
It's a really hard program. It's 6 months. I had a sponsee that I worked with that went through the Sally. And he was, I remember because I knew his brother. And so that's how I got connected with him. And it was like, I don't know, probably over a year where he was supposed to meet with me. He bailed. He was supposed to meet with me. You know how that is. He just wasn't ready. And then finally, when he was ready, I met with him. And then he says, I'm going to go to the Salvation Army. And I was like, really? Okay. So, clearly you haven't heard anything about the Salvation Army because it is not, you probably are not going to fit in. And he went to the Salvation Army and I went and saw him every Sunday for 6 months, and he was there and he graduated.
Yeah.
And so that's what I noticed is that, yes, it's a really hard program and only 3% of the people graduate, but the people that do graduate, like those are the ones, they're the good ones in my experience. They're the ones that end up making it.
Yeah. There are several of us that have made it after graduating that 6-month program. And I still go back. I definitely go in and check out the meetings, and we do like a Christmas thing every year. And it's nice to go back and just see where I was 28 years ago.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah, that was you.
Yeah,
wow.
that was totally me. I know, it brings tears to my eyes. And the fact that I can leave that gravel parking lot,
Now, was that the only time that you went to treatment? Or
yes.
Was that it? One and done?
Well, that wasn't the last time that I drank, because I drank one more time when I got out. I actually smoked pot first because my brother came and picked me up from treatment. And he was like, you graduated, what's smokable?
Of course.
And I found out I was pregnant in treatment too. So I was like 3 months pregnant.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, I don't like weed anyway.
No big deal.
So I was like, no big deal. But a few days later, I ended up drinking. My friend was like, Amy, a glass of wine will be really good for the baby. And I was like, yeah, a glass of wine would be fine for the baby. Like, I'm not a wine drinker anyway. I'm a Bacardi 151 drinker. Yeah, I slam Everclear. That's what I do. So wine's not really alcohol, is it?
Right. Yeah. No, totally.
But I drank myself into a blackout while I was pregnant and ended
with
up
with wine.
Non-alcoholic wine. No.
Well, I think for so long they would say a glass of wine a day is good for you. And it's total BS. That's all marketing. One glass of wine a day is not good for you. It's like, who do you think promoted that story? And actually what I've noticed today, probably more so in the last couple of years, there are less and less people drinking, even people that are not alcoholics, people that are just the normal average person that really does only have a glass of wine or a drink here or there. And those people are not drinking at all. And it's really, it's cool and it's interesting. And I guess it's just, alcohol is so bad for you.
So bad for you.
It's so bad for you.
Every single cell in your body.
Yeah.
Heroin's better for you, actually.
I don't know much about heroin. I didn't hear that, but I don't doubt it. I mean, the alcohol is definitely, I mean, I've heard just terrible things about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know my experience with it is terrible, so I don't drink. But then it's not, now that I'm watching people that are normal not drink, it's interesting. So, how did your personal experiences with addiction and recovery inspire you to become an interventionist?
I think really, watching my dad die of cirrhosis of the liver when I was growing up, deterred me a little bit for a little while from drinking. But having that pain, just knowing that, oh my God, what if my dad would have been able to get sober? What if my dad would have been able to get recovery? And then in 2018, one of my nephews died of a drug overdose. And that pain was all just like so raw, so on the surface that I was like, oh my gosh, if I could save one family from having to feel this pain, I would do
Mhm.
anything to make sure that somebody else's dad could get better, somebody else's nephew could get better. And I think that's, what gives me the passion that I have today to continue to work with families, to continue to be like in the trenches and see that pain on a daily basis, because I don't want anybody to have to lose somebody.
How long have you been an interventionist for?
So I started doing interventions. I actually did my first intervention in 2005, and I wasn't the
Okay.
interventionist, but I was a
Uh-huh.
part of an intervention for my aunt.
Okay.
And I'm the one who talked her into going. And I was like, oh my God, this would be like the dream job. I get bored easily. I don't know
Okay.
about you, but I need something different all the time. And then in 2012, I was actually at a clubhouse and this man came up to me and he's like, Amy, have you ever thought about being an interventionist? And I was like, oh my God, that's my dream job. And he said, I actually have a guy that is looking for a female to train to be an interventionist.
Hmm.
And so I started working with another interventionist for 3 years. I
Okay.
sat second chair with him. I did some first chair stuff too, but mostly just, watching, paying attention, kind of modeling after him, taking a bunch of courses, like doing all of my own like educational stuff, getting involved in networking. And in 2015, I actually made an amends to a guy that the DEA came and raided his apartment, and I couldn't remember his last name to
Uh-huh.
save my life, literally. And I finally remembered his last name, searched him up on Facebook, and I was like, I don't know if you remember me, but I lived with you, back in 1995 or whatever. And he was like, how could I forget? I thought you were dead.
There, I made a few of those amends. It's like, yeah, I don't know if you remember it. They're like, yes, I definitely remember.
He's like, yeah, when you called me, he's like, I just can't even believe it. Like, I can't believe you're alive. And I made that amends to him. And I said, is there anything that I left out? And he said, yeah, actually, you came into my apartment and you stole everything in my bathroom. Everything. He said,
Uh-huh.
my shower curtain, my toilet paper holder, my razor, everything.
Wow. Okay.
And he was like, but I called you and I told you that if you didn't bring it back, I was going to call the cops and you bring it all back. I don't remember doing it. But
That's funny.
the great bathroom heist.
There's a lot that you could do with that stuff, right?
Yeah. But, when I turned 17 years sober, he showed up at my birthday with roses and scratch off tickets and like all of this stuff. Like, I should be bringing him gifts.
Yeah,
And he
that's
said,
so
and the
cool.
main gift that I got for you after we sat down and talked the other day is I bought you your website for the next 5 years. And I was like,
Wow.
I was so scared to like go out on my own. And I had so much encouragement here. And there was a therapist here in Denver that was like, Amy, you can do this. You,
What was the website that he bought for you?
a drunk whisperer.
Okay, so tell me about that. What a drunk whisperer. Tell me about that.
So when I was seeing under that other interventionist, we were doing an intervention. It was a hard one. It was an eating disorder, addiction. Like there was all kinds of stuff going on. She was like with her drug dealer boyfriend. Like it was crazy. We tried to get her away from him, but he showed up with a gun. None of the family members wanted to leave. And they were like, is anybody going to go with her? And I was like, I'll go. So I went and hung out with her and her boyfriend who had the gun for the next few hours. And after the time that I spent with her, I finally talked her into going to treatment. We got back to the hotel room, and her brother, who was a doctor, came up to me and goes, "Oh my gosh, Amy, you're the drunk whisperer." And I was like, that would be a great name
Yeah, love it.
for a website. And
Hmm.
I looked for the drunk whisperer, because he said I was the drunk whisperer,
Hmm.
but there was no the drunk whisperer that was available, only a drunk whisperer, which my sponsor said it's probably better that I'm one of instead of the.
Definitely, definitely.
Little better for my ego.
Yes, for sure. In your view, what are the telltale signs that a family should consider seeking the help of an interventionist?
I think if they've, really, if they've had a conversation with that person and let them know that they're concerned about them, that they love them, that they want them to get better, and they're met with resistance or anger or, any of the tactics, because really we'll do anything to get somebody to stop talking to us about drugs and alcohol, whether
Mhm.
it be nice or be mean or whatever. But typically their brain tells them that they need it to live. So they're going to usually be in attack mode. And if they continue doing that and you've tried, then I think it's time to hire a professional that can help you with resources, help you get a team together to really show that person how much they're loved, how much they're cared about, how much they're needed in that family unit, and how important it is for them to go and get the help that they need, not only for themselves, but for everyone else in that family unit. And getting that prefrontal cortex turned back on is the best way to do it. And there are many ways to get that prefrontal cortex turned back on, but the easiest way to do it is with love. And so I, operate in a love first model of intervention, although I've learned lots of different styles over the years, and I kind of implement a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Pretty quick on my feet when it comes to dealing with people like me. And, the families too, really getting them to understand that it's a family disease and that nobody gets to stay healthy in sickness. Everybody gets sick. And so when somebody needs help, everybody needs help. So encouraging them to start the help that they need, because intervention really isn't for the addict or the alcoholic. It's for the family. It's so that the family unit can start healing and coming back together, so that when that person does get help, even if it's not immediately, because I don't believe that the only success around an intervention is them immediately going to treatment. I think a success around intervention is starting the conversation and getting healthier so that that person has no option but to go get help.
Right. Okay, so you started talking about this. You've described your method as non-confrontational and rooted in love. Can you elaborate on how this approach impacts the success of an intervention?
So I think really, getting family members together and reminding that person of how much they are valued, how much they're loved, how much they have an impact on not only the family unit, but just being in this world, and reminding them of who they are, I think is so powerful in getting that prefrontal cortex turned back on. Because when you're dealing with somebody that's just living in the monkey mind part of their brain, of course they're going to not see things for the way that they are. They don't have self appraisal. They cannot see themselves the way that we do. So we have to remind them. And I think that when we do that, that approach is so effective in getting people to see that, hey, there's a whole group of people that love you and care about you and want what's best for you. Because I think far too many people, especially families, are so scared to do an intervention because they believe that you're just going to go there, you're going to do whatever you can, like kidnap, put some duct tape around them and get them to treatment. Then they're going to hate them forever. And that hasn't been my experience. Yes, some people are angry, but for the most part, people feel relief. Like, oh my gosh, there's a good plan in place. We can do this. And, they go to treatment with some efficacy and feeling like they can succeed and that they can overcome this addiction, because not only are they doing it themselves, but they have their whole family that's going to start doing all the work that they need to do in order to be that solid foundation for them.
You've mentioned turning on the prefrontal cortex a couple of times. Can you explain what you mean by turn on the the frontal cortex?
So our prefrontal cortex is really where, the thinking part of our brain is. And alcohol and drugs has the ability to shut that off. And so we're really just living in fight or flight if I'm in addiction. And so getting that prefrontal cortex turned back on so our brain is actually working so that we can be an actual participant in making decisions. Because if your prefrontal cortex is shut off, you're literally living 5 to 10 seconds into the future. You can't plan the future. You can't make a plan for yourself. So most people say, oh yeah, let's let them hit rock bottom. They have to want it for themselves. They have to do it for themselves. They can't. They literally cannot do it. So having people come in with a good plan, having people that are saying, okay, we love you, we care about you, this is what we think is the best thing for you, gets that prefrontal cortex like clicked back on. They can actually see the plan. They can be a part of that plan, and then they can implement that plan in their life. But they can't do that when they're in that fight or flight mode, which most people operate in that mode for years at a time. I know I did. I don't remember much of anything that I did.
Right. Yeah. There's periods of time in my life that I don't remember as well.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges you face as an interventionist, and how do you overcome them?
I think the biggest challenges really are getting the families to recognize that it could mean their lives if they continue to enable them. And enabling can look like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And, like paying for their alcohol, letting them live in your house and, really destroy your peace, your safety in your own environment. People are constantly doing that, and they're loving their person to death, literally. Like setting some healthy boundaries, recognizing that, hey, like I need to do what's right for me. And yes, it may seem like a consequence for the other person, but I'm setting myself up for safety. So really teaching the families like how to have their own boundaries, and that boundaries don't have to be like a line in the sand. It can be a flexible boundary that not every single family has to like cut off the living arrangements. Not every single family has to do, people are so afraid, like if I kick them out onto the street, they're going to die. But if we come up with a better plan for them and say, hey, like I'm not kicking you out, I'm giving you a better option so that your life will be saved, people can see it in a different way. And so a lot of times it's the family that's a challenge because really they don't understand. So there's a lot of education that goes into teaching them like what are some effective things out there that can be done? What are some effective things that you can do for yourself so that you can start the healing process? Because they get so hyper vigilant about, whatever it is that's going on with their addict that they cannot seem to function outside of that. And so some of it is like getting their own trauma therapy, going into an Al-Anon program or a codependence program, or doing some inpatient treatment of their own, because sometimes their sickness is worse. It really is. And their pain is so enmeshed in everything that alcoholic and addict does. So it's kind of untangling those things, like learning what these family secrets are, finding out where that trauma has, even the intergenerational trauma can lead to some of this stuff where they don't want to get help, or they've heard about somebody that's had a horrible intervention, because it's kind of like the Wild West out there. There are
Right.
some people out there that just say that they're an interventionist and they don't know what they're doing. They don't have any education. And, so some of that too, like finding people that are looking into like, what is this person doing? How can this person help my family? What is the educational background that they have so that they can teach us a little bit about the brain? They can teach us a little bit about the treatment center that we're going to be sending our people to.
Nice. Can you share a story of transformation that particularly stands out to you?
Oh, from one of the interventions that I've done?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, there's a girl that I helped when I was in my first couple of years of doing interventions. And I think she was like 16 years old. She was a heroin addict. And she was like adamant that she wasn't going to treatment at all. And she was just like, no, I'm not going. You guys don't understand. You have no idea. And I don't know exactly what it was that I said to her. I think I said, "I think you think that you can stop on your own." And she was like, "Yes, I can." And I said, "But the problem is that you can't stay stopped." And she just broke down and started sobbing. And she was like, "I'll go to treatment." And she went to treatment and she got out. And I think that she relapsed a couple of times. But I was in a meeting one day and she came running up to me and she was like, "Oh my God, I'm sober." Like, and introduced me to her parents. She was celebrating like 3 years sober. It was like amazing. And
Yeah,
she's
it's so
still
cool.
like still sober. She wrote a little blurb on my website and I'm just like, "Oh my God, this girl, like night and day, night and day." And I get to see that on a regular basis. Like it's so cool to see when they just go in and they embrace it, come out and they have a whole brand new life.
It's so cool. I can relate to that. It's like I've been doing this long enough, just like you've been doing this long enough, where you see people and they've been sober for, 3, 5, 10 years. They're married, they have jobs, they have kids, they have careers, they're doing things, they're making contributions to the world. It's just the best feeling.
It's the best feeling ever.
What advice would you give to families struggling to help a loved one dealing with addiction?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give you is to stay in today, to know that you're not alone, that there are people out there that really do care and want what's best for you and for your family, and that can walk with you every step of the way. Because sometimes it's really hard to regulate ourselves in the midst of all of that chaos. And it's hard for our brains to work, even if we're the person that is sober, because we're so wrapped up in the problem instead of looking for the solution. And that there are a lot of solutions out there. There are a lot of right ways to get help and to not let the shame stop you. Because I think far too many families have a lot of shame around not doing it quick enough or not doing it the right way or all of the things that they've done wrong along the journey. And they get stuck in that and they can't move their feet. I think that those are the most important things.
Like it. How do you maintain your own mental health and well-being while working in such an emotionally demanding field?
Yeah, this is a big one. I mean, really, I have my own trauma therapist and I see her on a regular basis. And I do a lot of self-care. I take care of myself by doing massage. I take care of my own recovery program. I exercise, I eat healthy, I get enough rest, I drink a lot of water, I drink a lot of protein shakes. I'm constantly out there helping other people. Like I speak all over the world. So I have to do a lot of things to really ground myself, reminding myself of mantras, because I get a lot of people, especially when I'm telling my story to the world. If I'm at a conference and I'm telling my story to a couple of thousand people, I have to remember to like kind of put my Wonder Woman bracelets on, like keep some of the negativity off, like
Mhm.
do some of those meditations and surround myself with that white light and put that armor on, so I'm not taking on other people's problems, so that I can listen to it and I can be there with an empathetic ear, but I'm not taking it on for myself. And water is very cleansing. I often tell the people that I'm working with, go take a shower. That will change your mood. That will change your
Mhm.
mind. Utilizing some essential oils. I use those with my families, come in day of, and people are
Right.
super adrenalized, and give them a mantra and some oils to help them stay in the moment. And I'm a
Uh-huh.
really good regulator, like
Yeah.
I learned how to regulate a room. That was part of the
Mhm.
benefit of growing up in that tumultuous environment. One of the best skills I got out of that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Tell me about your morning routine.
So
Since we're talking about self-care.
yeah, absolutely. So I wake up in the morning and I say a lot of prayers and I do a love meditation. So I think about, a lot of people give me love, or a lot of people give me like all these prayer requests. So I'm constantly being bombarded with like, can you pray for this person, or can you think about this person, or just throughout my day I see that people are hurting. I have a sense for people. Like if I'm anywhere, it seems like the person that's hurting the most in the room will come up to me. perfect stranger will come up to me and tell me everything that's going on with them. So I do a love meditation where I send love out to every single person when I wake up that crosses my mind. And I say a lot of prayers. I have a whole list of prayers that I say, and I ask to be divorced from self-pity, selfish and self-seeking motives. I wake up to some daily readers. We have a call called Dime Therapy. And, we read 3 different daily readers, and I kind of take them through my day, and I send out like a little thought for the day. And yeah, I mean, I wake up slow. I don't jump out of bed,
Right.
and, then I get up and I do all my vitamins in the morning, and, just kind of a quiet, prayerful morning for a while. And then I think about like, who is it? Who is it that I'm supposed to help today? Where am I supposed to be? What's next? What's next? And then when I get that gut feeling that I'm supposed to be doing something, that's what I do. I try not to be so like rigid in my daily planning that I can't show up where I'm supposed to show up. If somebody crosses my mind that day, I pick up the phone and I call them, because there's a reason that somebody's crossing my mind. So I make sure that I reach out, and I reach out to lots of people, because I want people to know that they're not alone and that they are cared for, and that I do think about people. And when I think about them, I reach out.
That's great. How important would you say your morning routine is on like a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most important thing?
Oh, absolutely a 10, maybe 100.
Okay, right.
Like, if I skip that, I feel so lost throughout the day.
Right.
If I get up and I just like go to it, if I'm like, I have to jump out of bed at the last second, and I know what, and I'm just kind of trying to fit it in wherever, it doesn't go well. I seem like I'm more agitated with people, and I'm not centered in my own self, and I have to do that. I have to do that for myself.
Yeah, I'm with you. I give myself at least an hour. Same thing, breath work, pray, meditate, gratitude list, red light therapy. I mean, I read. There's a bunch of stuff that I do, but it's so important. Whereas I can remember, pre-sobriety, hitting the snooze button 5 times, jumping out of bed, and then running and starting my day, and it's just chaos. It's just chaos.
I don't like that chaos. The peace. Oh my gosh.
I like the peace.
Priceless.
I like having it. I like just easing into my day. I do all my little routines, and I just love it, and I'm ready for the day. So based upon your experience, what changes or innovations do you hope to see in the field of addiction recovery?
I think more education. Like, I do a lot of lunch and learns and networking and stuff. And I think that getting the word out to everybody, really, that there's so many free resources out there for people if they can just find them. And I guess one of the innovations that I really hope gets better is the mental health piece. Especially here in Colorado, there's such a lack for good mental health that it's constantly just like, oh my gosh, like, please just get us something good here so that, I can get my people to a place where they can be whole and happy.
Awesome. If you could share one message with someone at the beginning of their recovery journey, what would it be?
One message: do this thing like your life depends on it, because it does.
Love it. That's a great suggestion. Is there a question that you wanted me to ask you today? If so, what would that question be? Did I miss anything?
I don't think you missed anything. I think we went over a 10.
Okay, we did. We certainly did. Yeah, this has been great. So where can people find you if they want to connect with you? If you want to talk a little bit about your services, this is your shot. Tell us how people can find you and a little bit more about you and your services.
So my website, like we talked about earlier, is adrunkwhisperer.com. And you can find me on Instagram. And my phone number is 303-915-7072. And I don't know. I mean, you can Google me and you can find so much. You can find my story on YouTube. You know what? You really can't find the bad stuff, because I got in trouble so long ago that none of that old stuff is on there.
Okay, that's great. That's great. That's
so great. And then I have a book that I've been working on, my memoir, and who knows when that'll be published, but the book is written. So now we're just waiting for next steps.
Awesome. Well, this has been great, Amy. I really appreciate you. I got a lot out of our conversation, and I'm sure there's some people out there that learned a few things as well. And yeah, so that does it for our time with Amy Moore. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of I Love Being Sober. If you found this video to be of value, be sure to like it, subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos, leave a comment if you have a question, if you've got something to say. Camelback Recovery provides treatment services for people struggling with mental health, mental illness, addiction, alcoholism. So if you or someone you know is struggling, be sure to reach out to us. You can go to our website, camelbackrecovery.com, or our information is in the comment section below. And we provide everything from detox, inpatient, outpatient treatment, sober living, recovery coaching, sober companion services. So either we'll be able to help you or we'll be able to refer you to people or treatment centers that might be a better fit. So I will see you in the next video.